Our next session is a panel discussion, ladies and gentlemen, with a focus on our topic, corporate impact on urban mobility, exploring how corporations influence, shape, and improve urban mobility outcomes, from reducing congestions to promoting sustainable and effective commuting ecosystems. Moderating this discussion, we have Kashmira Dubash, Deputy Director, ITDP India, and accompanying her, we have our esteemed panelists of industry leaders. We have Mr. Shashi Bhushan, VP Procurement, StateStreet, Mr. Chethan Kumar, MA, Director, Burjeel Holdings, Mr. Disney Thomas John, Real Estate Facilities Manager, Shell, Mr. Vikas Chawla, VP Real Estate and Workplace Services, Salesforce, Mr. Girija Rangaswamy, Head of Facilities India and Asia Projects, Texas Instruments, and Colonel Kavil Alexander, AGM-Administration Branch Head, Bengaluru, TCS. With a round of applause, please join me in welcoming our eminent panelists on stage, along with our moderator, Ms. Kashmira. Can I have you all kindly join us on stage and take your seats, please? This panel discussion promises to be insightful and something that we all have a keen focus on, a corporate impact on urban mobility. Ms. Kashmira, I leave the stage to you. Kindly lead the way.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kashmira Dubash, and I'm a Deputy Director at ITDP India. Firstly, thank you so much, Movin Singh, for having us part of this mobility symposium. To kick off with, firstly, I just want to say a big thank you to Arun for that very inspiring presentation, because I think it was a perfect segue into this discussion where if there is that corporate will, a lot of change can actually happen. And we do something very similar in our deep dive cities, Chennai, Pune. And I remember, when Arun was talking, I kind of remembered a very personal incident where my daughter was asked, "What does your mom do?" And she replied, "My mom is a computer worker and she fixes footpaths." And I really couldn't be more proud the fact that she recognized the importance of the kind of work that we do here. But without further ado, I would like to turn this attention to this particular panel. Now, if there's one thing that unites us all, whether in Bangalore or in India, whether you are a corporate CEO or an intern, it's the issue that we have with traffic, right? Now, whether you are in a very nice air-conditioned taxi or you are on your two-wheeler navigating potholes, we are all part of this very slow-moving symphony. But what if we were to flip that narrative, right? What if we were to change this into an opportunity? And the reason being, because more and more corporates, and we were discussing earlier as well with all these panelists, a lot more corporates want employees back into the workforce 5 days a week. It's no longer hybrid, it's no longer work from home, and it's adding pressure to our streets. But what if corporates thought differently? What if they thought a little more strategically? Maybe stagger shift, maybe stagger timings, maybe have a better employment mobility management. It could either make or break the system, because urban mobility, I feel, is more like your Wi-Fi network, right? Like if everybody is trying to log on at the same time, and if you are you're viewing heavy files, what actually happens? The system either slows down or it breaks down. So hence, it's extremely important that corporates think otherwise. How do we make sure that employees have better, safer commute? And without a further ado, I would like to have my first question to Mr. Vikas. Vikas, we've been hearing all morning about the way Bangalore has been growing as a city. Now, from a corporate perspective, what do you think is the role, or how do corporates actually share the responsibility of mitigating the strain this growth has on our urban network when it comes to mobility?
Thank you, Kashmira. First, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Movin Singh for organizing this. And we all know the city, we proudly say, Namma Bengaluru, we are all part of. It has grown by leaps and bounds. And today, if we face all these concerns and challenges, we are the ones who need to solve for it. And let me give you a perspective from some growth perspective, where before I dived into the other question from Kashmira, let's understand the population of Bangalore, say in 10 years, has grown from a 10 million to a 14 million now, okay? And it's adding about 4 million. 4 million is roughly the population of a city like Kanpur. It's now, UP is one of the most densely populated states, we can say, and Kanpur is a bustling industrial town. So that is a level of population which has been added. And then when we talk about data from a perspective the grade A office space, that more and more corporates coming into the picture, like we saw the tech street at HSR. Thank you, Dipesh and Arun sir, for putting that perspective across. The net absorption is around 30% of the overall absorption which happens in India happens in Bangalore. And the second best is Delhi NCR, which is just about, say, 20% of the overall. So those scheme of things, every corporate wants to set up a shop, wants to grow in Bangalore. However, we want the folks in the government to be solving for it. But as Kashmira rightly said, we as corporates have this responsibility to look at what we can do around us, what we can from a perspective of engaging our teams, our employees, like staggering work hours. Is it a possibility? I would say the answer is no. But then when we are looking at resuming getting back to work, it's typically around 3 days a week. And today we all know, sitting in this room those 3 days are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, nobody is willing to come. It can be at best, some people come on a Monday, but then everybody wants to come on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because Monday is also now considered as an extended weekend. Those Monday morning blues will be there. Let's sort it out. So how do we as corporates solve for it? I would say looking at ways and means to give our employees that kind of connectivity. Because today we have a lot of options to travel within the city, but then everybody wants to be flexible in their approach, and more so after COVID when we have this return to office, which is firmly in place now. People want that flexibility. However, there are means available today where people can use public transport. It augurs well, but the last mile connectivity is something which they dread, and more so the footpaths not being there. But I believe Arun sir and Dipesh are working on it, and sooner we will have those 1,000 kilometers footpath being there, which will solve for it. So giving that last mile connectivity is something which is very important, which most of the organizations at corporate do. However, we also look at when we are designing our infrastructure, are we putting that perspective into place from a public transport availability which is there. So I believe the corporates need to factor all those aspects and also give their employees the flexibility or some kind of rewards if they were to come on off-peak days. So those are the kind of things most of the corporates are encouraging today, and I would expect more and more corporates to come on board and look at if they are based on a particular geography, like it could be now we have something like a VPA, the Whitefield Industrial Park Association, where you can work at can we stagger our days between it could be something in this month we work on these days, the bigger occupants of that park, and similarly those things can be taken up like Prestige Tech Park, which again has a biggest footprint around Outer Ring Road, or maybe the RMZ or the Brookfield Park, what we call it, and eco world in the eco space. So those are the kind of things if we can work around and ensure that, and also look at if we can, rather than having multiple vehicles on road, provide some ways and means to give that last mile connectivity to the metro stations which is there. So those will be the few things I would say which will be integral from the corporate perspective.
Thanks a lot, Vikas. Now, one thing that you mentioned is that employees want the flexibility. On the other hand, most corporates now want employees back at work 5 days a week. Now, gone are those COVID days where you had the luxury of working from home. So that brings me to an important question to you, Girija, that I think when we were discussing earlier, the fact is that it's important that employees come back to work, that you were mentioning. But what is the kind of backlash that you've actually faced from employees? Because, you're an employee as well, and you are suddenly back to work 5 days a week as well. And there is a lot of loss of productivity during these long commutes, and that's probably one of the biggest issues most employees have. So is employee mobility planning, is it becoming a strategic business concern and no longer an administrative concern?
Yeah. You rightly said. Not all organizations would expect 3 days a week. Nature of work, R&D setup, people have to come 5 days of work. That is an expectation to meet their productivity. And this is one constraint everybody would complain, because to come itself, they spend 3 to 4 hours in Bengaluru on road than working at office, right? This is a very tricky subject now for us to manage. When they come, we give flexibility, right? You come at 8:30 in the morning, you log in, or 9:30 you log in, or 7:30. What is it making? It is making us to add more vehicles to the road. Because everybody won't come, one will choose one per vehicle. That is adding up. But from the productivity point of view, we are giving that flexibility, but that is from the mobility and this one, it is adding up additional time. And I also would like to add to what Vikas said, and even the previous great presentation, footpaths are very key. I'll just take an example from Bangalore, Bagmane Tech Park. We have very close couple of metro stations nearby. It takes 45 minutes to cover 2 kilometers metro station in the evening, couple of hours. An employee, even they choose to go by metro, it takes 1 hour or half an hour in metro time to reach their home. But to reach metro, the last mile connectivity, it takes 45 minutes to 1 hour. That is huge. I have seen many employees getting down in the middle of the road, but they can't walk. There is no proper footpath. It is great to connect footpath and increase that last mile connectivity to improve this, making their life. Can we reduce? How much we can reduce? Instead of 2 to 3 hours they're spending on road, can we reduce this? This is the key thing. And we are struggling.
Sure. Thanks, Girija. And so the point on footpath, that is extremely, extremely crucial. In fact, earlier when we were discussing with Colonel as well, I think you also mentioned the issue about last mile connectivity. But before I come to you, I have a question for Mr. Shashi. Mr. Shashi, I think you had a very similar point on last mile connectivity. You said that, while we may have certain incentives for our employees to use public transport, one of the major constraints continues to be last mile connectivity. So from your perspective, how do you think corporates could, work together, either with government agencies or on your own, to improve this last mile connectivity, at least for your employees?
Hello, can you hear? So one thing I would like to cover here is I'll not go to the step of government support or something. Let me come back to myself here. I'll give you a good example. 2 weeks back, I was in Leh on a motorbike ride, and so I was loving that nice landscape. I was loving to sit on bike. I was loving to spend time on the road. And when I was, coming for this symposium, everything changed for me. Now I don't want to be on the road. Because things were moving. When I was in Leh, things were moving. I loved to drive. I was there enjoying everything. But how the perspective changed when I come back in Bangalore. Out of that 12-hour or 13 active hours, if I am putting 20-25% on the road, and that to be focused, that if I am driving, I don't drive two-wheeler here, but I'm sitting on the road and focusing I cannot be part of some meeting at that point of time. So I'm not using that time very effectively here. So I think this time, the bandwidth stranded at one place, or the perspective changes drastically. And what I like about in our earlier panel discussion is start small. So one thing which I take away is that ride share I'm going to try for sure, rather than, me sitting alone. If I can take someone along with me here, utilizing non-motorized mode to go to office, I will start using it and try to populate within my team and within my organization. I think that can be a good way to start, but last mile connectivity is something I still stress on. We are doing the big infrastructure, but unless until we bring that last connectivity, things will not improve, and she covered it here. So with my personal experience, I should start with myself here, changing my paradigm shift within me, thinking, or my perspective will change on commute to office.
So, Shashi, you bring a very important point. In fact, just before we were having a discussion about ride sharing. And we were also talking about how, the people who don't typically ride share are the senior most folks of any corporate. And that may require a huge sort of a cultural shift as well. So any thoughts on how do we get the folks over here, the front seating people,
I think
how do we get them to ride share?
I think one is, getting flexibility within. When we do the ride share, we need to be flexible that if we need to wait for someone, we need to wait for someone. Sometimes those 5 minutes or 10 minutes create something on your mind. So I think flexibility, and again, you think through, because I started doing some ride with one of my colleague or team member, then I was thinking that if he is sitting next to me, these kind of call I should not take while riding to office. Need to think through, get that flexibility, and again, I have to change my thought process, but doable, very much doable. If I change that thought process, then I should at least populate or, talking about this more in the staff meeting and within my organization. Start small, and we have seen it, how people have changed it with working as a team and taking step at a time. So,
Thanks,
Kashmira,
Shashi.
can I
Yes,
have a
please
take on
do.
that? So I'll just give you an example. This goes back to the days around 2011. I used to be working for one of the organization in DLF Cyber City, Gurgaon. And we all know that time there were no underpasses which were created. It used to be a mess. The traffic used to be a mess. And we reaching office, now we never used to get parking because there used to be people before. How do you do it? So then we started this, that we will book or allocate 10 parking lots to people who come in a carpool. That is now 2 or more people coming. And that's when we saw the response, people were really surprised, and they were very happy that they can come at their own time, they still get. And then people started pulling in, and when we ran short of it, and then we had to move it up to 15 and then to finally to 20 out of the total 120 parking lots we have. So that was a big success. It's just about the kind of motivation and the kind of you can say the change management perspective you can put across to people. They are more than happy to accept it.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. And just on the last mile connectivity point, Colonel, when you were talking about TCS and the conscious effort of making sure that the corporates are accessible, the offices are accessible and are close to metros, but you've also faced hurdles, like you've also faced issues with people even using the metro. So what are some of the incentives that you all have taken up to make sure that there is a more conscious effort by the employees as well to switch to sustainable mobility?
Okay, thank you, Kashmira. TCS possibly being one of the largest private employers in Bangalore, we have been very conscious of sustainability, especially after the metro line, the pink line to Whitefield was completed in 23. I must say about 65% of our staff use public transport, and about 35% generally use their own transport, with about 20% mix being about two-wheelers and about 13-14% being four-wheelers. Towards this end, we have always been thinking on how to ensure that the associate discomfort is not there while this travel, because let's all agree to the fact, numbers that we know, while we might be paying a road tax when we buy a vehicle, the productivity loss that happens when we are traveling on Bangalore, on an average, is about 1.1 lakh rupees per person. So, willy-nilly, all of us are paying about 1 lakh rupees road tax every year by the productivity loss because of the commute. So, as a conscious effort, TCS generally has all offices astride the metros, in walkable distance of the metros. The new offices also that we plan for, that are coming up, are also astride metros. And because we are conscious that this paradise for pensioners which was there has become a Silicon City and has grown to this thanks to all the corporates which have come in here, and it is our social responsibility to ensure that whatever we can do, we will do. Towards this end, what few recommendations that I have. One of the main thing is it has to come from a policy narrative also, like what we were discussing, to ensure that more and more of our associates use the metro. We are in discussion with the metro authorities to have a one unified card which can be used in BMTC as well as metro. Something is already existing exclusively for my organization. Basis that if an associate employee does not use his personal transport for the month, we are planning to have some incentive loaded onto the card automatically. What happens is this makes travel by metro, travel by public transport more and more affordable and incentivized for the associate. Connected to that, as I discussed with you, it has to come as a part of my scope 3 norms. Currently, scope 3 emissions, we are not calculating anywhere. If it comes as a government mandate, which can be offset against these carbon credits, this any and every major corporate will go in for it. Connected with this is the fact that any corporate having a strength of 5,000 and beyond, all this should be as a part of the mandate for that corporate. As well as far as the first mile connectivity is concerned, because we have to look at both first mile and last mile connectivity. First mile connectivity, there are enough and more metro feeders. But the last mile connectivity, the point that he mentioned, and the fantastic job that Arun and Devesh are all doing for footpaths, I have a different take on this. And the different take being, the footpaths that they are doing is great. But till the time we don't get rid of hawker menace on those footpaths will still remain unusable. Because the moment you clean a footpath, within a month you will find hawkers there. And that is what we find in each and every IT park outside. For most of the associates of the IT park itself are the consumers there, and which makes those footpaths unwalkable. So that is something that we need to look into. Another thing that I am in discussion with various landlords or various park owners is, a park with a footfall of 20 or 25,000 and beyond should have a centralized employee transportation system rather than leaving it to the tenants to handle independently, which will lead to convergence of requirements, and it will also bring in more and more efficiencies. So first mile connectivity, government involvement, policy, statutory policies with scope 3 and CSR, all this will lead to improvement, because we have come to a stage wherein this infrastructure needs immediate attention right now. And for that, I am very thankful to Move and Sing for organizing this, so that we have a concerted brainstorming towards that. So I'm very sure that all companies are looking into it and corporates are putting in their effort. So some ideas like this can be utilized by others also on this forum.
Thank you, Colonel. And I think the point you made on convergence of requirements is extremely, extremely crucial, because I think urban mobility issue is not, it's not an issue of an individual. I think it requires collective efforts. And so Disney, my next question is to you. How can corporates so number one, can corporates come together? And number two is, if corporates do come together, how do they work together to ensure, our resources shared, such that we have benefits for the larger group of employees rather than just your set of employees? Could we come together to make something, to make an actual difference to urban mobility?
I mean, absolutely. I think we, as all of us have said in the forum here since morning, right? If you look at it, We've all been addressing the common issue of congestion, pedestrian walkways, urban mobility, etc. I mean, I think, look at digital absorption as such. I think 98 to 100% of all the corporates based out of all the metropolitan cities and Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities today use a digital software or a tool for managing their mobility solutions as such. So data is handy, right? So we know where approximately who's coming from. We don't have to share names and ensure the data privacy is there in place. We can go together. We can do something called a joint mobility, ride shares as an option. We can do walkathons. We do walkathons on, all IT companies do walkathons on different solutioning. I mean, how many of us have done walkathons on mobility solutions and how we can enhance urban mobility? How can we make it more safer by having a conclusive set of rules, regulations of how we choose our vendor partners? How can we data share, run collective maybe shuttle systems, which is connecting both the last mile mobility as well as the long time mobility. Thereby you reduce the number of vehicles. I mean, Vikas had touched upon absorption rate of people and people's presence. I think some time back we had said the number of cars and vehicles have increased. How has it increased? With the absorption of new companies coming in, the number of players, which is operators, partners, are increasing as well. So they're pumping in more infrastructure, more cars, more buses. I mean, all of us go to airports, for example, right? But most of us, what do? We ensure, okay, there is a car which is going. Why can't we operate shuttles which are friendly for luggage and etc. and move them on a common route as such? But then again, the question is, how do we do the routing? How do we get the last mile connectivity? How can I drop someone with the luggage on the main road and then get him to his or her house safely, especially at odd hours, at night, and days as such? So is it a possibility? I think it's a possibility. Can we as corporates come together? I think we've got bodies like NASSCOM, we've got OCRA, we've got LCR, we've got so many bodies. We've got representation over there in bits and pieces. If we all come together, like we have come together as an effort, thanks to Move and Sing today, I think it's possible for us to go back and co-create a solution which solves the problem as such.
I have a Can corporates come together? It's very difficult, I feel, because of individual processes and individually they have different, compliances and other things. It's very difficult to come together. But what is possible is the developer can do a lot for the entire park, because developer knows who is there, the developer can play a very good role in making them all coming together. That is possible.
And just to add to her point, the developer, we have a classical case, Hinjewadi Park, Pune, okay, where the park is supplied transport now, it's managed by JLL, and it's a classical case. They don't have to run multiple vehicles. Those are single shuttles. And now, I'm sure now there is an audience which can share some light, but then whatever I know little about it, it is that now it's managed by the developer of the park. And he provides that transport which all the corporates use, and then they are not private vehicles of the corporates which are allowed within the park.
Connected with this, like the developer that we are talking of, it should become a mandate for him to run those transport requirement. Connected with this, another thought that is there is, today when a developer is developing an office space, it should be mandated to a developer to develop residential accommodation in a vicinity of 2 to 3 kilometers of that office space. For example, I will not take names, but a developer wherein there is a footfall of 80,000 to 1 lakh. Now, if at least 20-30,000 residential units are available basis the whatever survey that we do, and which comes as a part of one integrated society, one integrated park, you automatically reduce the footfall on the road, because people would want to take something there. So say a developer is developing 100 acres. At least 25-30 acres should be dedicated exclusively for this. That is one of the thoughts that I have. Again, it requires a government mandate, statutory mandate, and may or may not come through in future.
I think a couple of developers are already doing that. For example, EcoSpace has done that in their space. But the problem is that it leads to the same thing. I mean, it's such a large park. If you leave the office at 5:30 in the evening, and God bless you, from your office gate to the main road, you will end up spending about an hour, 45 minutes just to exit the park itself. And that's because it's got the same concept. It's got development stage plus I think that the mix lies in the fact that yes, we have to get the developers to build the infrastructure to provide transportation. The companies saying, okay, let's use this thing. Some common grounds on safety, which is required from everywhere perspective as such, and which can also be utilized by automation solution as such, like move and sync itself can drive something maybe.
Yeah, absolutely agree with Disney to his point. Now, like RMZ is a classical case where we do have now the Adarsh developer who has built those apartments, but then those units are not enough. And then everybody knows now, pre-COVID, if you don't leave Eco Space or Eco World by 3:30, you are stuck. You will spend about 1 hour. Same is the case with Whitefield, where we have a good commercial complex in form of Shanti Niketan, but then the residential is just next to it. But the traffic on the road from a 4 o'clock to a 7 o'clock is a nightmare for anyone.
It cannot be together, residential and the...
It
no.
can be together, it eases to an extent, but then the kind of
different
infrastructure which is there, the outside periphery roads which are there, because there are other units also which are there catering to it. And the way we have planned our infrastructure, we never thought we will reach this volume which is there.
And I think that's kind of what Mr. Kargi also mentioned this morning, that it's so crucial to have urban planners in the city planning this for us. How do we ensure that people live near where they work? But the skeptic in me, even when you have sustainable mobility options out there, I think the skeptic in me will still question, will people actually still opt to use a sustainable option when they have the comfort of their four-wheeler, when they have the ease of using their two-wheeler? So what can corporates do, and Chethan, this question is for you, what can corporates do to nudge that change in behavior, that change in mindset? Because unless and until we change the way we think, and when I say we, I mean all of us included, it's going to be extremely difficult to see that change in behavior. It's almost like that catch-22. Like, for example, last year we were in Chandigarh, and Chandigarh has beautiful cycle tracks. People don't cycle. People don't cycle to the extent that you would have wanted them to see, or you would have wanted to see people cycling. And then there are other cities who complain that, because there are no cycle tracks, people aren't cycling. So we are kind of stuck in this catch-22. So what can corporates do to change that behavioral shift?
Thanks for this question. And I would like to start with, while I was traveling from Whitefield to this place, I was thinking Bangalore traffic problem, it's a density problem or it is a congestion in the road. Okay, so what I felt is it is more of a congestion than the density. Okay, so if you look at it that way, it's a good that city is growing and it's growing in a much faster pace. So in a way, this traffic problem is kind of a tax that everybody is paying for the growth that we are seeing here. Okay. So now coming back to your question, how corporates can help or can nudge the people. Okay, I would say there are certain things. One, most of our offices are spread across the ORR. Okay, that's again a congestion problem. Okay, so how to decongest, how to have not one office or a multiple offices spread across Bangalore. Okay, like while back, around 5-6 years back, I was working with Flipkart, and all our offices are only spread across an ETV. Okay, like spread across around 30 floors in one zone, but people have to travel to one single node. But if that could have been spread across, okay, if there could be one multiple zonal office, that could have been eased out. Okay, so that's the one way, where corporates, before getting into building, where my office should be at one single focal point, or can we spread it? That's the one thing. Okay, so the second point, we need to change our behavior. Okay, let's say with all this riding apps and everything, let's say if we can able to reduce or bring an impact on 5% or 10%, again the other 10% like the moment if I see that, okay, like, okay, everybody is adopting into a sharing or a riding app, and the moment we saw some decongestion, next day we will obviously need to think, okay, now can I take my own vehicle today because there might be less traffic. Okay, so it is our own behavioral issues as well, and also kind of aspirations that everybody wants to have. In sharing, there's a privacy, there is a waiting, certain compromises we have to adapt to do that. Okay, like mentally we should be ready. Okay, I need to do this. Okay, I need to wait. And again, within the parks, okay, I used to take quick rides sometime back just to see like how does it work. But the problem is somebody used to drop me near Prestige Park, but I need a last mile connectivity from Prestige Park to my ETV. Even within the ETV, if they park near some office building, I need to walk a longer distance, but due to the weather, that beautiful weather that Bangalore is blessed with during the rainy days, again, we have a problem. Like, so those are the points which make us to think, okay, like, I don't want to have this share ride because it creates a lot of problem because I need to carry my laptop, my other bags, and do that last mile, which is very, very difficult. Okay? And the other thing what corporates can think is, rather than depending on a shared, completely shared services, can we think on assigning a travel buddy, okay, within the organization? Like we have our own data, okay. It generally used to happen, and we started pooling our own floor people. Okay, like you stay in Whitefield. Okay, like how many people in this floor stay from Whitefield? Why don't we pool ourselves than from any app? Why don't we assign a travel buddy so that at least for your office, you're like, let's not try to solve the entire problem of Bangalore, but let's try to solve one floor problem or one building problem. Okay, that's the one point. And the last point, like what I would say is, okay, the other part, once the employee starts growing over the ladder, obviously his aspiration is, now I don't want to take a shared cab. Okay, so many of the leaders, either due to the privacy issue or to the prestige issue, okay, they do not want to come in a shared car. Okay, so there are certain behavioral changes that we also need to think, and we need to adapt ourselves. Otherwise, as I told, we will be paying this congestion or spending a good productive hours spending on the road rather with family or with our own selves. Okay, so this is the very biggest problem. And one last point, especially during the monsoon, I would say, like, can we run up some kind of algos or something like, okay, like this function, do all my team members need to be in the office today, or can we think about it, okay, like, no, anyways, it's raining, okay, this team, because we know all the project tracks, we know all the program tracks, what's going to happen. Do we really need? Or otherwise it is just a policy that, okay, like everybody has to be in office. So these are certain things that we as a corporate, we as a leaders can think and bring some changes and try to decongest our own offices first rather than thinking about the roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Chethan. Sorry, we are at time, but let's do a very, very quick rapid fire round. I think all of y'all have certain incentives that y'all are doing to ensure that employee mobility is managed a lot better at your organizations. But if you were to, if you were given this fairy wand, right, to make one bold move, where it's not just about ride sharing, because ride sharing might help your parking problem. It's not going to help the traffic congestion that we see in our cities day in, day out. So what is that one bold move that you would do to make sure that your employees also feel comfortable moving to public transport? Maybe I can start with you, sir.
The one bold move that you said, which we have already implemented and achieved about 65% use of public transport for our firm, is making metro as accessible as possible. Have one metro, have one common card with BMTC, the kind of work that they are doing, metro, which will come up in 1.5 years, we should be actually positive about it. While a lot of negatives are said about the transport, let's be hopeful and positive about Bangalore, because once this metro is up and about, Bangalore will be at the next stage altogether.
Thank you, sir. Over to you.
For me, I would say the way we have used the Move in Sync platform data from a data insight analytic perspective has given us a lot more for my organization within some place. Now I know much more about my operation, how I can optimize it. But I was just thinking in this forum, I can see the scale Move in Sync is into today. If they can do a data insight or data pull out at an aggregated level, which can be used by the government connections and the different senior people here to make this better.
I think access to data is extremely important. Girija?
This is magical one, so I'm
Magical
going, which
wand.
is
Go crazy. Yeah, absolutely.
A flyover or something connecting from the tech park to the metro station.
You want another flyover in Bangalore?
No, something straight away it will connect, avoiding 1 hour, and few more cars to metro that will make 50% of employees, more than 50% of employees moving to metro.
Okay.
So I would say today Bangalore has a footprint of metro for around 65 kilometers, making it 270 kilometers, which a city like Singapore has, so as to make it better connectivity. That will be my wish.
Thank you. Dismi?
My wish would be, I would go with the walkways. I would like to have completely covered automated walkways where you just stand like the airports and you can walk through your office and to the closest metro or bus station.
Chethan?
Yeah, it is very difficult to prescribe aspirin for a cancer patient. So I would rather think that, okay, first I would have built the Bangalore infra first, and then I would have brought all these things into place. Okay, otherwise we do not. I really do not cannot think of some magic wand solution for this. Okay, we would have built infra, but unfortunately that's not the case.
Fair enough. All right. So I think with this, we do come to a close. But I think beyond this particular mobility symposium, Disney, you brought up walkathon for corporates. And I'm going to use this opportunity, like Mr. Arun Pai did, that if, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 6 of you, if your organizations were to come together and host a walkathon to raise awareness for sustainable mobility in your very own city, would you be willing to do that? Okay, you all are saying it in front of everyone.
I think absolutely, 100%. I think not just all 6 of us. I mean, give an option of all the people in the room together to come back and say, hey, would you like to be something on which sustainable mobility like a walkathon is possible? I think all of us would warm for it and definitely.
Can I get a nod from you all? All right, great. There you have it. One more commitment from the corporates in the city of Bangalore.